In studio, a very special guest. Been getting to know him a little bit more off air before we started recording. We should have probably been rolling tape.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
During the recording. But I'm talking with Shaun Wilson. He's with Agape Hosting International, which places exchange students in homes. And Jenny and I have been one of those homes for a number of years. Mm-hmm. Took a big break during COVID, but now starting to start back up. So welcome, Shaun.
Thank you.
Good to have you in studio and kind of getting to know you a little bit better. You guys are just now this year getting your hosting back on track, and primarily Japanese students.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into something like this. What exactly is Agape Hosting International?
Well, I grew up in a pretty interesting family. My parents were missionaries and pastors and very imperfect, but loved the Lord. And I got the blessing of having that passed on to me in a relational way, all over the world. And so my brother and sister as well have that heart. So they're more famous in the sense. My brother's an author.
Yeah, you said he wrote some of the screenplays for some of the Kendrick Brothers movies.
Yeah, Fireproof and Facing the Giants and Flywheel and those things. And then he has his own books out.
So you've been all over the world with YWAM a little bit, other mission organizations.
Yeah, I mean, there's over 200 countries, but I've been to 46.
And your parents were kind of like the people that we see in the Jesus Revolution movie, kind of hippie Christians.
I would borrow my mom's clothes for Halloween. I'd raid her chest of drawers, and it was like, this is perfect, just hippies, yeah.
But eventually you started moving toward this hosting idea, and we found out about you, 5 or 6 years ago. We were going strong with you just before COVID hit. A couple of times a year we would host kids from Japan.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. And, I'm super blessed having families like you, but it's interesting because I go and visit every home. I have 1,204 families now on my database, and I've basically visited every one of them. And everyone is so uniquely different. It's super interesting. You'd think it gets the same after a while, but everyone's just different. It's fascinating. But, great people, great families, probably all imperfect, but the kids, my heart, like I was saying, so my sister is, her husband's a pastor in Everett at New Life Foursquare. Mm-hmm. And, we've all been in the kingdom of God in different ways. And mine is a lot less visible. I don't really go in the limelight. Mm-hmm. I suppose I play music. I go to
you're a worship leader.
Yeah, I love to worship, and I just close my eyes. I could care less if it's 30,000 people or one. When I'm worshiping the Lord, I feel super comfortable. But
where did this desire to connect foreign exchange students with American families come from? What's What's the idea there?
I always had this heart to reach the lost or whatever, and I've heard the statistics with Japan. Even though it's an open country, it's super closed to anything not Japanese.
Right.
And so they sadly they don't realize that Jesus is part of their culture. It's not some foreign thing, but most of them have never even heard the name Jesus, and that was unbelievable to me. I was like, really?
Yeah, and I spent some time in Japan as a missionary with YWAM. That's my connection to the Japanese culture. I've experienced the same thing. You can go on a university campus witnessing to otherwise educated Japanese young people, and they don't know who Jesus is or that he was a real historical figure. They think he's just kind of a myth. Again, kind of a Western thing that has nothing to do with them.
Yeah, and it blows me away. We have a lot of times we have Christmas groups or New Year's groups, and groups meaning they come for like a week or two, and they stay in a host family's home. And I usually rent classrooms at churches, and they'll do 3 hours of English lessons, and then we'll take them on tours around Seattle. And so when I say a group, that's what I'm talking about. But we'll have a Christmas group, and it's a perfect time because the kids will say, what's Christmas about? And I'll always say, well, it's Jesus' birthday. And always the next question is, who's Jesus? And what a perfect question to ask someone who has a heart to share the gospel with people. So that's super fun, and I'll usually have them read Luke 2 and give each other parts, and we'll each kind of act it out or do it with the little nativity scene creatures or whatever. But that's super fun. But to me, it's a ministry. What it used to be was in community colleges And it was a lot of real liberal families that were doing this. When I first found out about it and got involved, I started hosting. And I just saw this hugely missed opportunity for believers where we don't even have to get on a plane and take time off of work. And,
I'd love to be a missionary, Lord, but I'm too busy here.
Yeah,
you find out they're coming here.
They come here, and they're your captive audience for a week or two. And if nothing else, you just take them to church and they get to experience worship and feel the presence of the Lord that they've undoubtedly never felt in any group setting. So that's super fun. And I feel like, whether it's like sealing the deal and they're, giving their life to the Lord forever, or if it's just neat seeds planted, I've seen it over the last 26 years.
And you work with organizations, then I assume, in Japan who know you're a Christian outfit.
Oh yeah, it's funny. They're like,
but they're not Christians, but they'll trust you.
Yeah, because what happened is I just took it over, and I was like, they were really struggling to find families, and so I was like, Lord, could this be what I'm looking for? Because I was a contractor, and my body was just falling apart, and I want to do something different. So I saw this opportunity, and I ended up just taking it over and starting my own company. And most of them were happy because they were so worn out from doing, running these groups. So I kind of did an unhostile takeover. And then I thought, these should all be in churches. We could rent, put the money into the kingdom, rent the church classrooms. We pay the families. Like this today, I have 78 kids showing up. And in 2 different churches.
And we'll have a couple of them.
Yeah, you're going to get to those. What a blessing. So there's two per home, and it's only 8 nights, and we're paying $960 to the host families. And it's not all about the money for sure, but
no, because we usually spend all.
Yeah, and that is the intent, is that it pays for your gas, pays for your time, pays for the food, but the idea, what really got it going, I was sitting in the hot tub with my son. And I was trying to find, I think it was 12 families. And I was like, when I was first getting this going in this area, I did it in Oregon for a little while first, but getting it going in this area. And I just thought, what am I missing? Because I was trying to get churches to kind of get my heart for the Japanese, and we're missing each other. And so I asked my son if he'd pray for me, and it was kind of like this half sentence, cute little lame prayer from a 9-year-old. And he was, goes back to playing in the hot tub. But then right when he prayed that, I got this whole idea of host for missions. And I started realizing, there's tons of churches in this area that want to send missions teams. And they're doing bake sales and car washes and, just beating themselves up to get money to, fundraisers and stuff. And they'll do fireworks. And that's great. They make a lot of money doing that. But there's not really a ministry involved in it. And host for missions, if I have 20 families hosting and they're each making $1,000, that's $20,000 in a week or 2 weeks. I hit up a missions pastor or a youth pastor that's trying to get his kids to Bolivia or Russia or Mexico or wherever. And they're like, well, yeah, if you host, if you have 10 families hosting 2 of my kids, I'll give you $20,000. And that sounds different than we pay each family $960.
Right.
And all of a sudden, there was like this ministry born where my Japanese kids are getting great families because they're not even really doing it for the money. They're doing it because they want their youth group to go on this missions trip or whatever. And so they're doing it for free because they're donating their stipend to the missions fund. So I'm getting these great families. My Japanese kids are getting to experience agape love from another human that they just don't feel that in Japan. They're loved in different ways, but not God's love. And, even just sharing grace with them when they break a cup, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. How much do I owe? And you're like, what? You don't owe me anything, and we're sharing a grace with them that doesn't exist in their mind. And they're like, why are you being so nice to me? You're so kind. And we hear that all the time, and we don't think we're kind. We actually kind of complain about each other and our neighbors and everything else, but we actually have a heart for people that we kind of take for granted, I think. But anyway, so that's how that all started.
Well, it's a wonderful outreach. Kind of bring us in for a landing because this is radio and we have some time constraints. But if you would like to find out more about Agape Hosting International, unfortunately, there is no website But you got to talk to Shaun in person on the phone, find out more about his heart for the Japanese. And like I said, I spent some time in Japan. I got a real heart for the Japanese. But this is the way, even when I was there for a year, that's the only way you make any inroads is through friendship and through relationships. You can't just, it's a very closed culture. But they open up as you make friends and you show, you have a relationship with them. So if you have a heart for Japanese young people starting to venture back out of their country after COVID now, Shaun would love to hook you up with what he's doing. So how do people get in touch with you, Shaun?
Okay, so my email is agapehosting@hotmail.com. And so it's AGAPE, if you know your Greek.
Okay.
agapehosting@hotmail.com. Or you can text or call me at 425-408-2993. And it's just me. This year we've had about 200 students. In the typical big years, we've worked with 25 to 30 churches and up to 1,200 students a year. So it's just
real plugged in with churches locally. I think our current batch is a meeting at Northwest Church in Linwood, Scriber Lake Road. So
one's at Northwest, and then one's at East Side Foursquare. So it ends up being 78 kids coming today.
So talk about a cross-cultural experience. Again, they're coming to our country, and they need families to sign up. And you continue to have groups. A lot of times you have one around Christmas time.
And then one in spring. And then
fall.
summer.
And summer and fall. Okay. Yeah. So it's starting to pick back up after COVID, kind of really shut you down there for a while, but he still has a heart for this. And again, it's agapehosting@hotmail.com.
Yep.
To find out more about how you can get involved with what Shaun Wilson is doing to reach the Japanese. Thank you for talking with us today, Shaun.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you.